Spurs have overcome Manchester United in the Europa League final, gaining access to the Champions League and maybe rewriting the story of this year for Spurs. What does this mean for the future of Ange Postecoglou and Spurs? What does this mean for the future of Ruben Amorim and Manchester United? We're going to dive into all of that and so much more. But before we get into any of that, I have to introduce my good friend and newly outed Arsenal fan, Kevin. How are you doing today, seeing one London team win in Europe? Something your team's never done.
Well, not only to see Spurs win a trophy that we didn't win
Ever.
well,
in history.
to winning the Europe in general, and now I don't know how, but Spurs are gonna throw that in our face, even though they finished 16th.
Still got silverware.
It's fine. It's fine. You're valid in your reasoning to throw that in the face because we won nothing. But then, also Barcelona losing out on the UEFA Champions League is just it has
not been a good
very
month for
disappointing
Kevin.
to see that. Like, just a few weeks ago, both of my teams were in the semifinal of the Champions League, and now one of them's out. Both of them are out. And
in the same round.
Then on top of that, Spurs went and won the Europa League. Good for them. I think that I got to say this because even though I am an Arsenal fan, I got to say that they deservedly won it. I think that Ange deserved it more than anybody for me because he was called a clown practically in the press conference by one of the reporters. He wrote a paper on him talking about him being a clown if he doesn't win anything. And so it's kind of funny how
and rightfully so, though. Like, that paper, while harsh, Ange didn't do anything to help himself. Literally came out and told the media at the beginning of the year, I win things in my second year. And this is he put a massive target on his back and dude got the results. He's a champion. He's a European champion.
And I've always praised Ange, even though I hate Spurs. I've always praised Ange because I just feel like he's a very direct manager. I love direct managers. I love the fact that he, addresses the media the way that he does it, and his style of play. You can see the effort in the way that Spurs played. They deserved it over United. That's without a doubt. This, to me, I hate United because they're such a phony team to me. It's just so ridiculous how they came in with all this hype to this game and then went and disappointed as always. Because I don't know why
heritage
United are such a team that just knows how to disappoint, man, in every way possible.
And I think that that's a good way to get into this topic with United, right? Because we
and I'm
know
sorry
that
to the
Manchester
United fans out there. I know there's a lot of United fans out there that are gonna hate me for this, but come on, man, your club all you guys have to look back on is the Sir Alex Ferguson area. Let's forget about that, man. Y'all need to really do something with this team. Because it's come on. United is a historically amazing. They're a historical team. They need to fix something because
they need a facelift,
at this
man.
point, dude, it is frustrating even for me, who I don't give a crap about United. And
I'm not a United fan. And seeing them be this bad
at all.
There's a thing where it's a thing, right? We had this conversation a long time ago about Barcelona, and and you asked me this question, why do you care if Barcelona is good? Shouldn't you want Barcelona to be bad? And I was like, no, that's the exact opposite of what I want, right? What I want, and what I think you should want for Real Madrid, is to be good enough to push Barcelona, but just bad enough to not beat Barcelona. And that's what we were this year, right? We were good enough to push you guys until the end, but not good enough to beat you. And that's what you want out of at least us as primarily La Liga fans, right? As a Real Madrid fan and you as a Barca fan, you want these English teams to be good enough to push Real Madrid and Barcelona, but not good enough to win. And Manchester United is a part of that group. And now you're at a crossroads with Manchester United if you're the ownership group, if you're the club, because 16th in the league is unacceptable. not winning a trophy for a club that claims to be a big club, because that's what United are supposed to be, right? They're a big club. Another year trophyless. You can't say another year because they won the FA Cup last year, but then that's an argument about does the FA Cup count? We're not going to get into that.
Here's the worst part about it. They hired a guy mid-season.
And then gave him a bunch of players that don't fit his system at all. Asked him to change the system.
My thing was, and I told you this from the get, man. I like Amorim. I wanted him to go to United, not this season, next season.
No, here's the thing, and I think this is the question I'm going to have to ask you.
Dude, they needed to keep Ten Hag. They just needed him at least till the end of the season.
Because they wouldn't have been this far with Ten Hag. They wouldn't have accomplished. I think they would have been just as bad with Ten Hag. I think here's the question you got to ask yourself.
If they're just going to be just as bad, then why waste all of the crap?
Let me ask you this question, Kevin. This is the question that dignifies whether or not this move for Amorim coming in mid-season was a smart move or a bad move. Are Manchester United going to keep Ruben Amorim? That's a question that, not would you keep him, because I think you and I both agree you should keep him.
They're going to.
You think they are?
I think they're. Why would they not, bro? It'd be so stupid.
Well, because they're 17th. They lost in the Europa League final. They don't have a European.
It'd be so stupid if they didn't, bro.
I agree with you, but there is a conversation that he's going to get sacked. And here's the thing. If he is sacked, he's not a
miracle worker, bro. How could you guys expect him to go in and save this team mid-season? That's insane. That's insane.
Kevin, no, I agree with you, but that's the point. The point is that if we're going to be objective about this, right, they need to keep Amorim, right? Because they gave him a play.
Absolutely, they need to.
Of the starting 11, I want you to think about this while I go on this because I want your answer. I want your answer objectively. I want you to pull up the starting 11 for the Europa League final. And then maybe even look at the bench. Tell me how many of those players are worthy of wearing that shirt, worthy of wearing the badge. Count that in your head while I go on a little bit of a rant here. I think that hiring Amorim was the right move. If you would have kept Ten Hag, you would have burned the season. I don't think Ten Hag makes the Europa League final. I don't think Ten Hag finishes in the top 7 or the top 8 and gets European qualifications. It doesn't change anything. But by bringing in Ruben Amorim to this team at this time, what you've done is you've now given him like 4 or 5 months with this team to come to the realization that like none of these guys fit in this system. None of these. I need a facelift. I need a whole new team to get this team to be competitive. And now that's going to be a lot harder because they don't have Champions League football to entice players to come.
I do think that Bruno Fernandes deserves to be there. I do.
Is that the only player?
I feel that way.
Do you think that's the only player? Because I know my list.
Mazraoui, I like. Lenny Euro, I like.
Not about liking. How many of those guys are good enough to be at United?
Mazraoui deserves to be there. Lenny Euro
he's good enough to be the starting right wing back?
I do. Mazraoui is a good player. He is good.
I disagree.
I
think he is good. I don't think he's good enough to be a starting player for Manchester United.
Lenny Euro deserves to be there.
Not as a starter. Not yet. He's too young. I don't think he's good enough yet.
Mason Mount is a player that has a lot of potential that I think you could use to get better.
26? Is he going to get better?
He's got potential. At
26, he's going to get better?
Garnacho deserves to be there.
Yes, on the bench where he is. That's right.
Yeah, but like a player that has a player that has a lot of potential.
I looked at that team and I saw 2 players that are worthy of being on a team that claims to be as big as Manchester United.
What about Kobe Mainu, dude?
2
Thiago
players.
Dalot.
2 players. Bruno Fernandes and Amad Diallo. Those are the only 2 players that I think are good enough.
Diallo's good too. I objectively disagree. I just feel like Mazraoui, Lenny Euro,
good
Bruno
players.
Fernandes.
Totally. Mazraoui's not good enough to be in the starting. Would Mazraoui start on Manchester City?
Right now, yeah.
Well, yeah, but not next year. They're probably going to
I don't
go
know
and get
what's going
Pedro
to happen with
Porro.
Manchester City this year. Pep said he didn't want any players.
No, he didn't want to expand the squad. That doesn't mean that he didn't want any players. They're losing 5 guys. Ake's been put up. We're not talking about Manchester City. That's going to be subscribe if you want to be around for that. But like when I look at this team, I look at 2 players that are truly deserving and good enough to wear the badge that represents Manchester United. And everybody else, they can be on the team, right? Because you're not going to have a full 11 players that are world class. But to not even have a majority of those players, like Højlund, young, has potential, definitely should not be a number 9, like legitimately wearing the number 9 for Manchester United. He should be on the bench with Garnacho. Mason Mount at 26 years old, you can't count on him anymore. Patrick Dorgu is 19, 20 years old? Like, he's your starting left wing back, and he's got a ton of potential, and I like what he can be, but he's not good enough to be your starting left wing back. Luke Shaw when healthy, is good, but he's never healthy. Harry Maguire, dude, like, I love the Maguire, Eno, and all of the things, but like, he's good for 4 or 5 mistakes a game. Guaranteed. He's not good enough to be there. Like, this is the problem with Manchester United. You just don't have a squad that's capable of doing the things that you need, and you need a whole facelift. And that's why I think we both agree here. They need to keep Ruben Amorim, but they need to gut this team, and they need to rip it down to the studs, and they need to bring in a whole bunch of new players.
It's just a lot. It's a lot, dude. I don't think that's going to happen in the summer.
I think
they have to get rid of a plethora of players and bring in a whole plethora of other players.
Totally, but here's the thing: you don't have to do all of that business at one time, because like let's just have this conversation. Let's say they bring in another center back, right? Not even.
Which they need.
Not even. I don't even think they need a center back, because like when you have like Maguire and Lisandro Martinez like healthy, like when you have everyone healthy, you have like Maguire, De Ligt, Mazraoui, Lisandro Martinez, Lenny Yoro, Aiden Heaven, who I think is actually really good. When you've got those guys, I think you've got enough in the center back room. But like, let's just say they bring in a center midfielder.
Think about this. Think about the fact that he plays with 3 center backs.
No, I agree. But they have 8 center backs right now on their squad.
8?
They have 8, yeah. Johnny Evans, who they need to replace, obviously.
I don't think Lindelof, Johnny Evans should be there.
No, I agree. But even if you don't count them, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, Matthias De Ligt, Mazraoui, Lisandro Martinez, Lenny Yoro, that's 6. That's not even including if you were to include Tyler Fredrickson and Aiden Heaven. That's 8. I'm not including Evans or Lindelof. They have 8 center backs on that team. I don't think they need a center back. Right? But okay. Besides the point, let's just say this summer they sign 3 players. 3. They go out and they get a midfielder to play next to Bruno. They get someone in that midfield to help there, right? Because it should be your starting midfield should be Kobe Mino and Bruno Fernandes. But you need more bodies there, so you bring in another midfielder. You bring in another number 10, and they're going to do that with Mateus Cunha, that we've already gotten the here we go from Fabrizio Romano, and I think that's a good signing for them. And then you go and get a striker. Tell me with just those 3 signings, this team isn't totally different. If you finally get some creativity and not old legs in Casemiro, finally get some actual guy who knows how to play in the half spaces at the number 10 next to Amad Diallo, and a striker that isn't struggling like Højlund. Højlund needs to go somewhere else where he can sit on the bench and he can develop. He's not ready to be at the level to start. And so I think we're going to end the Manchester United thing here, which is just saying, look, I think they should keep Ruben Amorim. And this summer, they need to see a massive facelift. They need a couple of midfielders. They probably need a right wing back. They definitely need a striker. And we know that they're going to get Mateus Cunha. Any last thoughts on United before we move on to Spurs?
I mean, yeah, I think you were spot on in that. Just because I feel like United do need a haul, man. But I just don't feel like just getting players and manager. I feel like they're gonna go through the whole Ten Hag thing all over again. They really need to update their facilities. I think they need to really look within the club. They need to look at the culture, because there's got to be something wrong with the culture at this point. And yes, I mean I do agree. Like they need a new squad to accommodate to Amorim, but they need to look within, man. They need to stop with this. Oh, we need to scratch the project and bring in a manager who's going to bring in all the players that he wants. And I think they really need to look within and compare themselves to a club like Bayern Munich, to a club like Real Madrid, to a club like Barcelona, to really understand where are we going wrong here. What is going on in the culture of our club that we keep having to go through manager after manager after manager and not being successful? Because at this point they've gone through how many coaches? I mean, Jose, Van Gaal, who else did they go to? Ten Hag. Who was that guy who was coaching West Ham? That David Moyes. Like
Oscar got a
oh, yeah, Ole, whatever his name is. Like,
Yeah,
come on, man.
pronounce it
That's
true.
5 managers in like what, a decade? That's ridiculous. Come on, man. Like they really need to start looking in within, and there's something going on that has nothing to do with the tactical sense and the players. They've spent a lot of money on players. They've spent like we need to start looking at whatever the heck else is going on in that club rather than like let's just get a manager, let's do a new project, let's do this. No, let's look at the culture, what's going on there. Is it the facilities? Is
And I think
it,
they're doing the right thing there, right? Like, let's not forget that they did just hire a new CEO. They stole Omar Beretta from Manchester City. And so I think that they are going in the right direction. And time will tell. I think they should stick to the Ruben Amorim project. I think that they should give him his due.
I agree.
And I think that they also need to have patience with Omar Beretta. He has been a part of building up that Manchester City organization, not just the club, but the whole organization. I think you got to give him his time. I think you got to do all of that stuff. Moving on, Spurs are champions, and they get Champions League football. And I think we got to talk about, like, no, we kind of already talked about it, right? Like, I think Ange deserved this, and he did so well. But now the question that you have to ask, right? If you're Daniel Levy, if you're the Spurs board, are you keeping Ange or are you moving on? Do you think? I think you and I both agree that we would keep Ange. What do you think the board is going to do? Does Ange even want to stay at this point? What do you think the future of Ange is going to look like in these next couple of weeks? You think he stays? Do you think he's out? What do you think is going to end up happening there?
I mean, I think they're gonna axe him, unfortunately, but like, why? You know what I mean? Like, what could he have done? I feel like it's so messed up. I hate Daniel Levy because Daniel Levy thinks that Spurs should be like Real Madrid or something, and they're not. You know what I mean? They could get there, but they're not. And this guy's just this, like, he's delusional, and I don't like him.
I agree.
And so it's like,
you got a lot of Spurs fans really happy with all that.
For me, it's like, why would you not keep a guy that's put so much heart into this project? And not only has put so much heart into this project, but won something important for you guys that no other manager has been able to do. Because essentially, no other manager has been able to win trophies for this club.
Jose couldn't
do
it.
I think that that's something that they need to really look at. And the cards he was given this season.
Dude.
Like, yes, it's his second season, but look at all the injuries that he had. I mean, I think that if they're gonna axe anybody, it's gonna be their physios, because come on, how you gonna axe the coach?
I think that this is a little bit of a nuanced take here, right? Because I think that a lot of I agree with you. I think Ange is going to go, and I think that it's right for him to go, and I think that the club should do it respectfully, and I think that Ange should step down, is how they should position it, that Ange is going to go out as a champion, because a lot of the things that you talked about, a lot of the things that you mentioned are his fault. He overworks his players. These injury concerns that he's had has followed him. This isn't new. When he was at Celtic, there were injury problems at Celtic. When he was at Yokohama, there was injuries at Yokohama. When he was on the not with the Australian national team, but when he was at Melbourne, there were injuries in Melbourne. So to sit here and say that it's a really weird situation because, like, dude, he won. But sometimes that's not enough. It's just not. And the way that the season played out was just not good enough. And I think that Spurs are going to move on. And if that is the case, them winning today, at the time of recording it is today, is absolutely huge for them. Because it puts them in a position where now they can attract some of the best talent. Because they have the one thing that every club can offer. That every club wants to offer.
I don't have the confidence in Daniel Levy.
That's going to be that's ultimately going to be the sticking point.
Spurs fans do. And I think
no. We all hate Daniel Levy.
Well, yeah.
We want him gone.
Exactly.
But the reality is that when you have a bankroll as big as Spurs does, they're one of the most valuable teams in the Premier League for a reason. When you have the allure of being able to say, hey, you can play Champions League football if you come here, that matters. Because now you're going to look at managers in the Premier League right now that might not end up there, that legitimately might want Champions League football next year, that you might be able to go out and get. Because if you're Andoni Areola, do you not want to try and get your tactic with a bigger club, with more money, with more resources, and has Champions League football? If you're not, Thomas Frank, is that not something that you're trying to do? The manager for Brentford, are you not trying to get to a place where, hey, you can get there? If you're, oh man, what's his name? The Dortmund manager that we really, really liked, that got sacked when they went to the Champions League final.
Dang it, man, I forget his name.
Because he wants to come back to managing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think about maybe for another podcast, but I think Xavi would be a really good coach for a team. Not like Spurs, but like I like Xavi for
Xavi is an interesting Eden Terzic. There it is. He wants to come back, and he's a good manager. And so I think that before we get into the
he would be actually. I think he would be perfect for Spurs.
I agree. Eden Terzic and Andoni Areola are my two favorites for if Spurs are going to move on from Ange.
Areola is not going to Spurs, bro. I'm sorry.
I think he would. I think where else would he? Do you think he stays at Bournemouth again?
I think he would stay at. I think he has better chances of staying at Bournemouth.
After Bournemouth is going to get raided, Bournemouth is going to lose everybody. They've already lost Hoyson. They're going to lose Kirkes. We know that Kluivert, Semenyo, and Evan Nielsen are all probably on their way out the door. Arrizabalaga alone, and they're not necessarily sure that they're going to be able to keep him. I think that if you're Areola, now's the time to move. And the sad thing is,
Spurs, bro. He's gonna get raided too, and I just don't think Spurs is the move for him. Areola, there's gonna be clubs after him, bigger than
totally.
Spurs,
but like, okay, but here's the question: who's the bigger club? Who's the biggest club? Like, let's say they do. Ange moves on, he's gone. What's the other club that has a better offer? Who's firing their manager this offseason? That's a bigger club that's gonna be in on Areola. Bayern Munich aren't gonna fire their coach. PSG aren't going to fire their coach.
Should fire their coach, to be honest.
I agree with you, but they're not going to. PSG aren't going to fire Enrique. Liverpool aren't going to fire Slot. He just won. Arsenal should fire Arteta, but they're not, so they're going to stick with Arteta. Maybe Pep should move on, but he's not going to, so City's not going to go there. Newcastle's not going to move on. Like, the only other possibility is if Chelsea move on from Maresca, you go take the Chelsea job. I'm 100% with you there. You go take the Chelsea job. That's a better situation. But, like, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, none of them are going to fire their coach. Bayern Munich, I think, like maybe Dortmund? That's actually a good one. Maybe Dortmund? Would you consider Leverkusen a bigger club? Would you
What
consider
about
like
Leverkusen?
Leverkusen's a great? There's an option. We've got to the
I
answer.
think Leverkusen would be huge because they already have a kind of a Spanish profile that I think would fit him better. But I mean, I would put Leverkusen with Spurs. I think I would put him. I would put him on par with Spurs because at least with Spurs, you're staying in the Prem, and the Prem is a much more competitive league than the Bundesliga, in my opinion. So it's a hit or miss, right? But
You know what
I
the
guess I
problem
see.
is?
I guess I see your point. Like, there's not a lot of big teams that'll take him, but I think Iraola should be at a big team. I think he really proved himself for Bournemouth.
But like I think like
And
the
not
problem.
to say that Spurs aren't a big team, but I feel like he like has potential for a better team.
But when? Where's that?
That's
the
the
question.
question.
Like you have to take your opportunity when it comes.
Right.
And if you want to crap on Spurs, like
100%
you
agree.
can do that. But like the reality is that Spurs are a top 6 club in the Premier League in terms of the ability to spend and all of those things. And I don't think that the result this year in terms of where they are in the league is indicative of how good the squad actually is. There was a time in the there was a point in the season where 13 of their starting players were gone. It's hard to overcome that, you know what I mean? And like it's really really interesting. One thing that I did want to say, apparently Eric Ten Hag is the front runner to get the Bayer Leverkusen job, and I hate that. I dislike that very much. But it is very, very interesting. There are a lot of things going on. I don't know, man.
I think. I think you're pretty spot on. I think Iraola should, if
Not even it's not just Areola. Whoever it is, whoever the new manager is, wheather it's Areola,
I like Eden
Fabregas,
Tersteg, but I'd like Eden Tersteg better for Spurs.
whether it's
in my opinion.
Terzig, Thomas Frank, whoever it is, it doesn't matter.
Xavi.
No, like Xavi again, like that's a good conversation to have. Like,
How
whatever,
would you feel like if Xavi went to Spurs, though?
I don't
honestly?
think that Xavi should not go to the Premier League. He
You don't
won't
think so?
succeed in the Premier League.
You know he wants to coach at the Premier League.
I agree. That's
I think he
fine.
said
I
something.
just don't think his system and his style of managing is going to work in the Premier League. He plays with
How
too much
so?
finesse. Xavi's system tries to use too much finesse, and I'm sorry, like the Premier League is not a finesse league. It's physical. You gotta have if you want to be successful
I
in the
think
Premier
he'd
League, you
be-
gotta
I
have
think he'd
7
be,
guys over 6'2".
I think he needs to do a Pep Guardiola move and just go to the Bundesliga.
I agree. He should go to Leverkusen. If we're
Yeah,
being honest, he should go to
actually, I think-
Leverkusen.
Honestly, that would be great for him. But I think
He
we're
should go to
getting off
Dortmund.
topic here. I
Like-
think we're
like-
getting off topic here. I do want to talk about. I do want to kind of just briefly talk about the game in general because, like, we've talked about where these teams are going to go, but let's talk about the final in general. What did you think about that final? Because I wasn't able to watch it. I was at work, but I do have I did watch the highlights, and I am seeing a lot of like the stats and what happened in the game.
Horrible.
Tell me what your recollection of this game was.
Horrible. It was a horrible game.
Really?
It was bad. Like it
Because
was just
looking
two,
at it. I mean,
it was
just
two
knowing
bad
that.
football teams.
Just looking at Spurs, they literally had 27% of the ball.
Well, so like,
And I'm not
it's not even
saying like this is super significant, right? But it does seem like United had more chances, they had more shots, they were coming in, and they just had a bad night. Compared
so
to
I
Spurs,
don't know
who
if that's
went
necessarily
in, shot,
true.
scored.
I don't know if that's necessarily.
Well, that's
true.
why I want to get your thoughts on it.
I
Because,
think
I'm
think
just
what we
looking at
saw
the
was two
highlights.
sloppy teams. And you're right. Manchester United had a ton of the possession, and they had a ton of the ball. And when you look at the total shots, like they had a ton of shots. I think they had 16 shots in that
even
game.
Looking at the highlights, I saw chance after chance for Manchester United.
But they only
I saw
really
three,
had.
I saw 3 literally total for Spurs.
But no,
They had
that
3
is
chances
true.
total.
That is true. But like the game, dude, it was just an ugly Premier League game. Like this game, if you would have taken away the badges, and if you would have told me that we were watching Brentford versus Brighton, I would have believed you. If not even because those teams are better. But like if you would have told me like this is West Ham versus Wolves, I would have believed you because that's what it looked like. It looked like two sloppy English teams who were just trying to stay on the field. And United controlled a ton of the possession, like you said. And there were a couple of chances where they're like clearly had a big opportunity to do something. Just in like at the end, there is I believe it's a Harry Maguire header that Vicario needs to get down to the floor to save. That Bruno Fernandes comes in. There's a cross where he just heads it and he's wide of the mark. There were a couple of chances for United, but I think that ultimately it was a game where Spurs. This is why I think they shouldn't get rid of Ange, because Ange actually showed some development and some change. He played a low block with a counterattack. That was the whole point. He knew that Amarim's Manchester United was going to overextend. And that's it. That's what they did. And at the beginning of the game, it was penning Manchester United in their own half. They had the ball for a lot of it, but they weren't really dangerous in the first half. And then once they scored that goal at minute 42, it's going to be a low block, and nothing's going to get in the box. And they did a really good job of stopping it. It was just a sloppy game. That's it. Wasn't anything pretty. It wasn't a good game per se. You know what I mean? It was a sloppy game by two, let's be honest, bad teams.
Well, I'm glad I didn't go out of my way to watch it, I guess.
No, absolutely. You shouldn't have. If you weren't a Spurs or a United fan, if you, went out of your way to watch your game, I'm sorry. That's it. Because it wasn't a good game.
But I wanted to watch it, but I couldn't. And, but I did look at the highlights, and I just, it didn't seem like it was such a great game. I didn't see a whole lot from Spurs other than the goal.
Again, it was a lot.
I am happy.
It was a lot of set pieces that just
I do
didn't
feel
go
like Ange did his thing, and I respect him for it, and I respect him as a coach. I think he's a great coach, and I do feel like he should continue at Spurs because this season was just hard for him, but I don't think that he will. But I'm gonna just conclude it there. I think that this was great. And I felt really good about everything that we've kind of touched on today. And I want to kind of go on later in future episodes and kind of going through what the future holds for a lot of these teams. Because
that's going to be very interesting.
That's going to be very interesting.
We've got one game left. At the time of recording, we got one game left in a lot of these leagues. There's one more Premier League game. There's one more, La Liga game. And while a lot of these leagues and a lot of these situations are already done, we already know that summer business is already happening. Real Madrid have 3 signings. Barcelona have already extended 3 players. Bayern Munich are at the finish line with 2 or 3 different guys.
Dude, I really want to get into what
Liverpool have already signed Jeremy Frimpong. There's a lot of things to go in. So make sure to hit that subscribe button.
Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think. United fans, I know you guys are going to give me a lot of hate, but please
I don't
leave
think
a
they're
like.
going to. I think they agree.
I don't know, man. I don't know. United fans are such a hit or miss because it's such a historic, and there's a lot of,
They should be better, and I think they know that. Let us know in the comment section. What do you think?
Let us know. Yes. This is Tactical Foul, you guys. That is my friend Tigo. This is Kevin. You guys get the heck out of here.